With me. God, may the words of my mouth and meditation in each heart be acceptable in your sight, for you are our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. What a beautiful song. Thank you so much, even though I forgot to make sure it was in the bulletin, so excuse me for that. But how perfect today. How perfect today to have that song when we're talking about this encounter that Jesus had on the mountaintop. The disciples were with him, and they came face to face with God. Face to face. I picked the Exodus reading to let you know what it's like to come face to face with God, because it happened to Moses. And we're told also that something changed in Moses' appearance. His face shone, and when people saw it, they were frightened. It wasn't the Moses that went up the mountain, but it was the Moses that came down. And also we see Jesus changing. We're told by the writer of Luke that the face changed, the clothes changed. I wonder, how much do we change when we encounter God? Today, I want to talk to you not about what happened on top of the mountain, not about Peter, John, and James, not about any of that, but I want us to talk about what it's like to come face to face with God and what should change for us. Now you're saying, now, Pastor, I have not come face to face with God. Not on a mountain or any place else. Well, I'm going to dare to differ with you. Because you have. You have come face to face with God, the Great Spirit, the Creator of all things, so many times. But maybe you don't realize it. Face to face with God, as you look at the amazing creation of this earth. Face to face with God when you look beyond this earth to the stars, the planets, the sun. You've come face to face with God in this building, which is why I said that song was so appropriate, because God is with us right here in this place. And you come face to face with God every time you look at the face of another creation, another human being, also made in God's image. We come face to face with God all the time. We just don't realize it. And, more importantly, as we come face to face with God, we do change, whether we realize it or not. I can't help but wonder what it must have been like for Peter, John, and James. And I don't blame Peter one bit for being the impetuous guy he always is, for saying, yeah, we'll just stay here. I would have picked staying there. Would you have picked staying there? Nice mountaintop Jesus, the heroes of your faith, standing there with Jesus, Elijah and Moses. I think it would have been wonderful to stay there. And you know what? I think we have our own mountaintop experiences, and we want to stay there. But let's talk about what that really means. You know, sometimes you're in a place. Maybe you can recall, it was part of what we did in our Bible studies this week, talked about places that kind of enable you to feel close to God. Places that bring you joy. Places where you're content and comfortable and at peace. Notice I didn't say that you know God and are at peace, but sometimes you're just in a place that feels good. Have you ever had that experience? Just being in a place and this is so cool. I just want to live here. I've said that more than once, actually. I mean, there are times when we've been to places and I'd go, I could live here. And I've meant it, actually. And sometimes it's been in a tent, but I could still live there. Often we find those places in our lives that just make us feel good. You ever had those places? I mean, do you have them? I hope you do, because it's so wonderful when it happens. And it can be so simple. Sometimes I'm sitting in my recliner, and I'm watching our Dobermans, Livy and Zach. And I'm watching them play, and I'm listening to that big 80-pound boy singing. That's what I call it. He lays there with Livy and he goes, and you know what? I believe he's just so happy to be laying there with her. And he just sings and sings, sometimes too loud. I have to tell him to stop. But I see them and I think, how wonderful to have someone feed you and take care of you so that you can just lay by your siblings. They're not really related, but we call that his sister. And sing. Wouldn't that be cool? I mean, I could do that. I could live that way. And I think we have these moments and we feel so much joy and peace that we just never want to let it go. But we have to come down from the mountaintop. We have to come down to the valley. This month is Black History Month, and soon we'll be celebrating the birthday of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. But I wanted to share with you, and if you were in your pod groups, Principles of Discipleship Bible study groups this week, you heard this, but I want to share it with you. Dr. King spoke these words on January 27th, 1965. I must confess, he says, that I haven't enjoyed being on this mountaintop, and I am tempted to want to stay here and retreat to a more quiet and serene life. But something within me reminds me that the valley calls me, in spite of all its agonies, dangers, and frustrating moments. I must return to the valley. If he hadn't returned to the valley, he might not have been assassinated. But he returned to the valley. And I wonder for how many of us we just get in this place, in this mountaintop place, where we feel so comfortable that we too don't want to return to the valley. You see, people of faith have challenges every single day. And those challenges really boil down to, am I staying on the mountaintop or am I coming down to the valley? Am I staying right here, me, God, wonderful, hallelujah, praise God, everything? Or am I taking the chance to be rejected to spread God's word? You see, the face of God is all around us. And I believe we'd be so much better off if we actually saw the face of God in every single person we meet. Every single person. Every single person. Right now, each of us is thinking of a person that we don't want to see the face of God. We've made up our minds that this person doesn't have God in their lives. Or doesn't act the way that people of faith ought to act. Doesn't talk the way or dress the way that people of faith ought to act. You see, we are so judgmental deep down in our hearts. Please hear this. We are all prejudiced. Every single one of us. Now you're ready to say, oh, no, I am not prejudiced, Pastor. I am not. Oh, yes, you are. Yes, you are, because I am. I'm prejudiced. I like to be around people that like dogs and cats. I think people that don't have them in their homes are just missing tremendous things. But those people that don't have dogs and cats do it for lots of different reasons, not my choice. And yet, I kind of like to go into a house with an animal. There's just something about that. I don't know, you feel like, yeah, you can sit on the furniture because they have pets anyway. And maybe if you're allergic, it's a little bit of a problem, if you're allergic to dogs or cats, but there's just something about animals. In fact, I have to say this, when we go on trips, anyone we encounter with an animal, I don't care where we are, we could be out in the street, we kind of gravitate. Have you ever done this? Hi, what a beautiful dog you have. May I pet them? Because when you're away, you miss petting your babies. This weekend, Elizabeth went to a symposium for her wood turning. And so she's down at the symposium, and I'm at home with 2 cats to tutor. When she calls, she says, "How are my babies?" Not our babies. And I go, "The dogs are in here with me. The cats will have nothing to do with me." And that is actually the truth. Not that I care, because the cats are like needy. They're needy on their terms only. If I wanted to hold the cat, which I don't, but if I wanted to hold the cat, and I said, "Come here, Zora," she would look at me like, "Not now, later maybe." Tony, on the other hand, goes, "All I want you to do is give me treats. If you just take care of that, we're good." See, there's something about the comfort level we have with people, and our prejudice often gets in the way. Now, I don't want to embarrass anybody, but right now I want you to just think about this. You don't have to raise your hand. Have you ever looked at a person, anytime, anywhere, and decided, "Oh, I don't want anything to do with them"? That's God that you're saying that to. Isn't that right, Jacory? That's God that you're saying that to. Do you realize that? God created everything on this planet. That's like looking at some small creature, maybe some you don't like, and wanting to kill them. Now here's where it comes into my upbringing, being married to the one who would save every creature on the earth. You know, we catch creatures that somehow come into our house and the cats haven't found, and we have to take them outside. It happens here too. No exceptions to any of that. You take them outside and let someone else worry about them. You see, everything we encounter is a gift from God, a blessing from God, created by God. And yet we, prejudiced people, make judgments. Which flowers are nice, which trees are nice, which bugs are nice. What's scary and not scary, and how animals need to just stay in their own place even though we're taking all their habitat away, so they find their way into our places. Well, they're not our places. All of it belongs to God. Animals have just as much right, maybe sometimes more, to be there. Yet, we make judgments. It's time to come down from the mountaintop, people. It's time to come down from the mountaintop. It's time to get to work in the valley. And that means we need to let go of our prejudice, let go of our judgment, and do what we're supposed to be doing. You might ask, what is that? Well, not necessarily evangelizing someone, not talking to someone about God or asking them if they've found Jesus. I believe it's more about being a servant of God, showing our faith in everything we do. That's what coming down from the mountaintop means. That we live our lives in the valley, showing people what it means to be a person of faith, no matter what our faith is. To be a person of faith says that we ought to look different. We ought to act differently. We ought to be glowing with the same kind of encounter that made Moses' face glow. We ought to be glowing with the same kind of encounter that Peter and James and John saw with Jesus and Moses and Elijah. We ought to be different. Not perfect, but we ought to be different. I know many of us, myself included, sometimes don't feel worthy of being different. There are days I don't want anyone, anywhere to bother me. Days I just want to be left alone. Days when I might not feel good or I have a lot of stuff on my mind, and the very last thing I want to do is talk to someone about my faith. But God has such a sense of humor. It is on those days when I don't want to do any of that that I get the phone calls. So, I recently got an email from the office of the moderator, and it basically said, someone wants to talk to someone in the Jacksonville area. And I thought, there's got to be someone else in the Jacksonville area. Well, it's going to be me, and I'm going to call them tomorrow. And I think, why? What kind of discussion am I going to have with this person that already thinks maybe not such positive things about MCC? And then I thought, yeah, I can do that. Because it's not about MCC. It's not about MCC. We are one group of people of faith who are serving God in the best way we know how. But it's not about MCC, it's about God. It's about God loving every single person on this earth. And it's about us. It's about us coming down from the mountaintop and working in the valley. Now, I don't know what your personal mountaintop is, but I know you have them. You have those things that just give you joy and bring you comfort, or some place or some being that you want to be with that you never want to leave. And that's good. There's nothing wrong with that. Because part of what we need to do also is just what Jesus did. Jesus had not had the best encounters right before that. You may remember that he'd gone to his hometown and he'd read from the scriptures, and I believe he gave a little sermon there that day, and they tried to throw him off the cliff. So he had not had the best time. And maybe he realized, like each one of us realized, I hope, that there are times we need to recharge. And that's when you go to the mountaintop. That's when you go to the mountaintop, that's when you pray. And that's when you just wait to feel the power of God recharging you. That's when you wait to see the power of God transforming you. Today's Transfiguration Sunday. It's all about the transforming power of God, how it worked in Jesus' life and how it works in ours. But it can't work until we are quiet and peaceful, put everything we can out of the picture, and allow God to meet us face to face. I am not the biggest person about meditation and taking those times because I just don't do it well. I've been to many meditation retreats, and I go, how long is this actually? How long are we meditating? Let me check my watch. I'm not good at it, but let me be in the backyard doing my bird count, sitting there and just watching things, and God and I meet. Because it's just me. And if I'm lucky, the dogs aren't there, but if I'm not, they're laying by me, they're quiet. And God and I can come face to face. So you need to find your mountaintop. You need to find your place to meet God. And you need to allow God to recharge you. And I know, for a fact, many times we don't take the time to recharge. And then we wonder why we're tired and short with people, how we're being so judgmental. It's because we've got to let God transform us every day, probably. In fact, there are times when I would say the very best time is the first time you wake up, whatever time that might be, that you can just take a moment and say, God, make me who I need to be today. Let me be your instrument today. Let me put all this stuff out of my head today, recharge me, and take me to the valley to do the work that I need to do. I pray that each one of us will take the time during this week to reach the mountaintop, to find a place where we can meet God face to face, and we can allow that meeting to transform us, to do the work we need to do in the valley. Please pray. God, we have so many examples from you in Scripture. But we also have examples every day from those we see or from people who've gone before us. We know what it's like to be on the mountaintop, and we know what it's like to be in the valley. I ask you now, God, to give us the strength and courage to leave the mountaintop every once in a while, to take our encounter with God and take it to the valley. And God, as the challenges we face in the valley become too much, remind us we're welcome at the mountaintop again to come face to face with God. Amen.